If I said that Novak Djokovic and Roger Federer have one of the most interesting rivalries in the history of tennis, I'm sure no one would be able to provide a better one.
Should I ask him? Okay, so how do you feel, beating me today?
Very good, thank you. How are you today?
Having faced each other 50 times, Djokovic winning 27 times, while Federer winning 23 times. And when it matters the most in Grand Slam matches, Djokovic has somehow turned out to be the better player. Some would argue that Novak Djokovic is the GOAT of modern tennis, and honestly, there's only a few valid arguments against that. In an era dominated by the Big Three, Djokovic seems like the last member of the tribe, and it was easy for us to conclude that he was scared of Federer. But listen to this, Djokovic has never been scared of Federer. And here's why. And stick around until the end, as we have some family gossip to share as well. The start of the rivalry. Way back in 2007, Djokovic surprised the world when he lost a total of 7 set points against Federer. This streak was disappointing, and it eventually cost him the finals of the US Open, and a humiliating bruise to his ego. Imagine wanting to play someone you believed you could beat, only to lose very badly when you actually play. And as horrible as that sounds, it was the story of Djokovic. It was the 5th time he was losing to Roger Federer in 6 matches, and Djokovic, like anyone else, hated that this kept happening. In the next 2 editions of the US Open, Novak would go against Federer again, losing both times at the semis. Talk about hitting a brick wall. But in the 2008 Australian Open, the gods of tennis finally looked down on Novak in pity. Djokovic and Federer faced off again in the semis, and this time, Novak won in straight sets.
There's going to be a new men's champion, the 2008 Australian Open. Djokovic knocks out the king in straight sets.
Fortunately, Novak would go on to win the Australian Open after defeating Jo-Wilfried Tsonga, landing the first major trophy of his career. But it wasn't until the 2010s that Novak finally looked Roger in the eyes and overcame the fear he never had for him. Before the 2010 US Open, Roger Federer had won the last 6 editions of the competition, and he came to this one hoping to win again. But as soon as he came against Novak, he had to pack his bags and go home, after losing 2 points in the 5th set. The next year, at the 2011 US Open, the tide had further moved in Djokovic's favor, and when the two met again, you could already guess who went home with the win in the bag. In an intense semi-final of power and skill, Novak Djokovic defeated Federer in style, and this game could be described as one of the best games of tennis ever played. After defeating Federer in the semis, Novak went ahead and added another US Open title to his shelf of major trophies. As far as the Australian Open goes, Novak still had revenge in his heart against Federer. In the semi-finals of the 2011 Australian Open, the two gave us one of the best games in tennis, lasting for 3 hours, and featuring some of the best sportsmanship ever seen. In the first set, Djokovic held tight with a tiebreaker, only for Federer to take the lead again in the second set. But this only pushed Djokovic to the edge. He won the next 5 games and won the game in the third set. In the finals, he went against Andy Murray, and it's fair to say, winning that seemed like a piece of cake. Djokovic would again face Federer in the 2016 Australian Open, and by this time, everyone knew who the winner would be before the match had even started. Federer lost again, almost a given at this point, and Novak went ahead to the finals. When it came to Wimbledon's, Novak has also practically dominated at their meetings. The pair first met back in the semis of the 2012 Wimbledon, and Federer won this to advance to the finals. While nobody would have guessed then, this turned out to be the last time Federer would beat Djokovic in a Wimbledon's championship. I'm pretty sure Federer would have enjoyed that moment more if he knew that that was the last time that it would happen. After the 2012 loss, the pair met again in the final of the tournament in 2014. The match lasted for almost 4 hours, and in the 5th set, Djokovic closed out the game. The next year, the two players would once again make it to the Wimbledon final, and just like the last time they met, Djokovic won by a pretty impressive mark. The last face-off in Wimbledon eventually came in the 2019 final, and for the first time in a long time, Federer appeared to be the better player. It was like a movie with a perfect ending. Federer would win this after a long time and take his place as the better player. But just as he was so close to beating Djokovic, we got hit with a plot twist we never saw coming. Djokovic pulled out the win again. Now, here's where it gets pretty interesting. Djokovic would later admit after the game that his opponent was the better player, but his own ability to win points at critical moments helped him to win the game. Do you know what that means for Djokovic to admit that? Federer must have had a hell of a game. Now, this isn't to say that Federer didn't achieve some level of success against Novak. Of course he did. He has won 23 times against him. But it's impossible to ignore just how much improved Djokovic looked against him in the later years. So what are the factors that showed that he wasn't scared of Federer? Number 1. His mentality. If you are playing at the top level, then you should be thinking like a top-level player. This is a rule of sportsmanship that every sports star holds close to their heart, but only a few can use this rule as well as Novak Djokovic does. Let's try to understand this better. Djokovic has won a record total of 16 matches from match point down and lost only 3 while he was holding match points. This meant that he was so close to losing 16 different times, but somehow managed to flip the script in his favor at the last second. Interestingly, none of the 3 matches that he lost from match point down were at the Grand Slam level. Talk about a top-class player living up to the hype in top competitions. At the start of the 2010s, the entire tennis world saw Djokovic develop a powerful kind of mentality. Before he grew into one of the most formidable opponents, Djokovic had watched Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer top the game for so long, so he knew that anytime he went against them, he would naturally not be the favorite. Rather than get disappointed or scared, Djokovic allowed this feeling to get him psyched. He knew that since the crowd was going to cheer for his opponent Federer, it would be smart to turn this energy to his own advantage. This guy must have read the 48 Laws of Power. Djokovic has a mindset of surpassing the achievements of Federer, and even when he gets close to losing, he somehow manages to remind himself that he can defeat him. On several occasions, when he was considered the underdog, he allowed his self-belief to push him through the game. And most importantly, Djokovic learned how to be aggressive against Federer at the most critical points, when it truly mattered. And this always proved to make the difference. But Djokovic wasn't afraid of Federer only because he cracked the mental game. Djokovic also kind of believes that he is just better. Number 2. He believes he is a better player. Djokovic has praised Federer in the past a number of times, calling him the greatest and other endearing terms. But his other interviews tells a whole different story. Djokovic believes that he has a game superior to that of Federer, as he can raise his level of play when he needs to. And this is not just an empty brag. Djokovic can actually anticipate Federer's serves better than any other player, with one perfect example being the 2019 Wimbledon's final. In this match, we saw Djokovic comfortably save his first match point and then go ahead to put Federer under pressure in a game that he had previously been controlling. But that wasn't all. This game also showed that Djokovic's backhand play was way better than Federer's while under pressure. Djokovic didn't just make these claims out of the blue. He's been hinting at this for quite some time. After he lost to Federer in the 2015 ATP Finals in London, the Serb said his Swiss opponent did a good job, but he only won the match because he wasn't in his best form.
And he becomes the first player to win 4 consecutive year-end championships.
He said, "You have those days when you're not feeling your best, not even close to your best. Credit to Roger for mixing up the pace, giving me always a different ball. He used the slice and spin very wisely. He served very efficiently. I made a lot of unforced errors. I just handed him the win, especially in the second set. He tactically played well. Undoubtedly, he was the better player on the court. But I think I also allowed him to play and penetrate through the ball and dictate the tempo from the baseline." What does this suggest? It's basically Novak saying, "Hey, Federer is great, but if we were both in our best forms, then the whole world knows who's winning." And against Federer, when it came to clutch moments, it always looked like Novak was from another world. This has, of course, caused many of us to think that Federer allowed the Serb player to get into his head in important moments. Let's check out the stats that back that up. Did you know that Djokovic has come from a set down 7 times to win against Federer? And he's been able to return the favor just 1 time. When it comes to saving match points, Novak also looked like the real deal. On 3 separate occasions, Novak has been able to save his match points, while Djokovic has never been able to do that against him.
Oh my word!
You might say that Novak has enjoyed this dominance because he is 6 years younger than Federer, but every fan who has seen these matches knows that Novak has prevailed simply because of his mindset, resilience, and the sheer fact that he wasn't afraid of Federer. But like we said, Federer has dealt the Serb some really bad punches in the past. For instance, he is the only player to have beaten Novak in all 4 majors. But that's really not that big of a deal since Novak is the only player to do the same thing to Federer. Also, way back in 2011, it was Roger Federer who ended Djokovic's 41-game win streak. So it's kind of fair to say that both players have won and lost some against each other. But there's also some pretty funny stories between these two. Did you know that at one time there was beef between the parents of both players? While both families never spilled the beans, we didn't need a shrink to make us see that something was wrong. It all started when Federer criticized Djokovic for faking injuries and branded the young player as a joke. While Djokovic might have forgotten about it, it didn't sit well with his father. And later, in 2008, Federer would once again step on their toes by telling the family to keep quiet during a match. Not so nice there, Mr. Federer. When Djokovic's father would eventually break his silence, he said Federer was a great champion, but not really a great man. Novak at this time was quiet, but since he couldn't forever stay silent on the issue, he came forward to say that he stood with his father, but didn't necessarily agree with what he said about Federer. However, he said that he understood that his father did that because he loved him, and that is totally fine. But are the pair really friends? Well, I didn't think so, and Novak just confirmed this in a recent interview with John Wertheim on 60 Minutes. He said, "We are not friends because, we're rivals, and it's difficult as competitors to be very close and kind of share and give insights to, to your life or to how you feel, because, it could be used against you." However, he adds, "But we have shared the stage for so many years, and I think the greatest respect is always there, at least from my side, towards them. So yeah, I hope that one day, when the curtains are slightly more closed, that we are, able to sit down and reflect. It would be amazing." Do you think this sit-down between Djokovic and Federer will be happening anytime soon, since the latter has retired? Well, we'll have to wait and see. And there you have it. Let us know what you think about this rivalry in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to learn more interesting things about your favorite tennis players.